ve Rusya'nın ardından da şimdi İtalya'ya gitme vakti. Seyahat ve yenilikçi yemek pişirme tutkusu olan yetenekli şef Cristina Bowerman bizimle birlikte olacak şimdi. Uzun yıllar Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nde geçirdikten sonra yeni nesil kadın aşçılara ilham vermek üzere ve modern bir İtalyan dönemine öncülük etmek üzere İtalya'ya döndü Cristina Bowerman ve 2008'de Gambero Rosso rehberinden 2 çatal aldı. 2010'da ise ilk Michelin yıldızını kazandı. Halihazırda ise Las Hosteria'nın şefi. Şimdi Cristina Bowerman'ı ben alkışlarınızla davet ediyorum.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. I am very happy to be here. Before we start anything, I'm going to say something that I swear it's not because I'm here, but I do love Turkey and Turkish people and Turkish food. So it is a great honor for me to be here. When I was asked to be here and the theme was inspiration, for me it was very inspiring. I am one of those people that get inspired by pretty much anything. Even last night when I went back to my hotel room, I just sat right in front of the window just looking outside and thinking, this is so inspirational. And everything that surrounds me, for me, it's a source of inspiration. I had no problem throughout my life to get inspired. As a matter of fact, I did change career 3 times. I studied foreign languages, then I switched to law. I worked for a couple of years as an attorney, then I worked for 10 years as a graphic designer, and then I finally, actually after reading a beautiful interview of Eleanor Zack, who I think is here somewhere, yeah, there she is, I read an interview of hers, and I got inspired, and I said, you know, I want to do the same thing that she does. And so I decided to go to school, and that's when I finally switched to this career. God knows what's going to happen in the next few years. So let's move on because we don't have that much time. This is my philosophy of life and actually of my profession. I think that I always looked at food when I decided to become a professional in this field in 3 different ways. First of all, food as culture. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I say all the time is that food is the only connection that there is among cultures. If we could overlap all the cultures in the world, the food cultures in the world, there's one corner that overlaps. That's the corner that I always look for. That is the connection that always exists among all the food cultures. I like to take ingredients, I like to study them, I like techniques, and I introduce them into my food. So I always thought that's the way you can deliver culture from one country to another. And the effect of this, honestly, is, I really hope, well beyond the scope of food. Because in reality, what it does is that it nihilates, it completely erases any kind of difference there are among people from around the world. Food as enterprise, I've always wanted. There was no doubt in my mind I wanted to be my own boss. And right now I have been working in Italy, in Rome, where I have a restaurant for the last 14 and a half years. Then all those others, they are concepts and they are part of my professional history. And finally, food as social support. I'm one of those people that believes that you have no choice. Whenever you get a chance and you have the opportunity of helping other people, you have to do that. Those are all the associations that I work with or that I have worked in the past. I am founders of several associations in Italy and internationally, and that's what I try to do because I think it is one of the things that we are supposed to be doing. We have the opportunity in this particular number of years to be speaking to public like you, and it is our duty to say responsible and intelligent things. So, The culinary theory, this is all my inspirational, all my inspirations. Those are all the things that actually inspire me whenever I think of a dish. I never think of a dish belonging just to the tradition, but I always think in terms of what can I bring onto the tradition. And now this is the point. What am I bringing today? Because that's the question I ask myself. What is it that I can say about Italian cuisine that is different or can bring, you know, some kind of like reflection on it? As I am one of the founders and president of an association that is called Ambasciatori del Gusto. It's an important association in Italy. And we try to make a difference within the restaurant business. So we actually englobe a lot of people, not only chefs, but pâtissier, bakery, anything, journalists, writers, scientists, because we want to make a difference in the restaurant business, and so that's what we work for. This year we have signed an agreement with the National Association, basically, the organism that regulates all the rice. And the reason is because there's a lot of misconception about rice. People think that rice is just like three kinds, Carnaroli, Vialvenenano, and Arborio. So what I did ask the president to prepare some of them. Consider that we have about 160 different kinds of rice that are perfect for risotto. So one question would be, was the risotto born before the rice, or the rice was born after the risotto? I could bore you with like technicalities about rice, but I'm not going to do that. I could tell you how much liquid it absorbs, how much starch it releases, what kind of like starch they have, the balance between amylose and amylopectin, but I don't want to do that. I just want to tell you that there are like 160 different kinds of rice in Italy, and they are all perfect, or almost all perfect, for any specific purpose. Italians are very picky about their pasta, about their rice. You have to use the right thing with the right pasta or the right rice for the right sauce. We don't mix up things. And that's part of the tradition. The tradition is what really is the strength of Italian cuisine, but also its drag. If you think about a beautiful classical sculpture in a museum, if somebody doesn't come to you and actually explains to you in terms that you can understand, then it becomes really very difficult to communicate that to the newest generation. I don't know how to make this work. Oh, yes. So that's what I try to do. Whenever I think about the tradition, I always try to make it like understandable, especially for newest generation. Our lifestyle has changed. We sit down in front of the computer all the time. We make much less physical efforts. So saying that we have to, like a lot of people scream at the top of their lungs, we need to keep the tradition exactly the way it is. Well, it's not possible, because the tradition needs to adapt it to the lifestyle, even though you want to preserve it as much as possible. Now, I had one tool here to stir my risotto, but it's not here anymore. So if somebody bring it to me, the spatula, the white. So again, one of the things that I've done with the risotto, I try to make it approachable by the newest generation, and by the concept. It's a white spatula, silicone spatula. So the risotto. The risotto has always been conceived with something that is fatty. And most of the time, actually, because of the ingredients that you put in it in order to get that cream that people look for, one of the things that happens is that, in reality, you lose the flavor of the rice to begin with, but second, it's not affordable by the newest generations, because we don't need to have like very fatty ingredients to make a risotto good. So thank you. So my approach is different. I made a fat-free risotto, completely fat-free, but it gives you the idea that you are eating actually fat. Not only that, but I try to use ingredients that are salty in order to deliver saltiness and make sure basically that you have the saltiness, the sapidity that you look for into any of these ingredients. So let's start toasting the rice with nothing. Maybe. Okay. There it is. So what I do is that I toast the rice with nothing. And the ingredients that I'm going to use, introducing actually some of the typical ingredients from here, are, as you can see, the pomegranate, which will give acidity, but also a different texture within the risotto. Second, I cooked, actually overcooked, some of the rice in concentrated broth. Then I have cauliflower that has been boiled and has been pureed. Then we have capers in two versions, actually in three versions. We have fried, deep fried. They are capers from Sicily that are like really flavorful, and they are very famous, actually, Pantelleria. They are very famous in my country. They've been powderized. Then we have some cauliflower that has been sauteed. And then finally, you have some preserved lemon. Preserved lemon is something that I use a lot in my cuisine. White wine. So I just toast the rice. As you can see by the shape, this is just a cannaroli rice. You let evaporate the white wine in order to give some flavor. And then we are going to start adding the broth. The risotto is a technique that sees the rice just covered by the liquid until it evaporates. And the reason is because that's too much. Okay. Whoa. Very powerful stove. You actually don't need to stir the rice as I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to coat it. Okay. Because the cynetic action due to the heat and the boiling water already creates that emulsion that we look for. So this rice, as you can see, has already started to release some of the starch, and we'll keep on doing it. We'll add a little bit of the caper powder. These are, of course, capers that have been preserved in salt. And I've done this vegetarian, but if you do decide to add some, for instance, not making vegetarian, you can add anchovies, which is something that we do too. So I'm going to get a pinch of salt here. Okay. We're going to add a little broth right here. Keep on stirring it. You generally need like a heavy bottom pot. So the ingredients that I am going to use, I'm going to put the lemon. Then halfway the cooking time, I am going to use this stew puree in order to give you the impression that you're eating fat, but you're not. A lot of times the risottos in Italy are full of cheese and butter, and that is one of the reasons for which a lot of people, especially younger generation, they tend not to use it or not to make it because it's very fatty. Whereas this fits perfectly the tradition, and at the same time it is a healthy approach, which is something that we are all looking for into the newest Italian cuisine. broth. All right. So I would say that probably generally rice that are perfect for risotto go to from 14 to 18 minutes cooking time. Yes. They start to release their starch into their second part, but that depends also on what kind of rice it is and how long it has been aged. In Italy, you have a variety of rices that have been aged up to 7 years, so that really depends on what you're doing and what kind of rice you're using. We're gonna add a little bit of our overcooked rice in a condensed, restricted broth. And as you can see, it starts to feel like it. We added butter. We're going to use the lemon up to the last second in order to preserve the acidity, at the same time delivers the sapidity. Okay. It needs to be boiling, simmering temperature. So you want to have it like in between 80 and 90, 95 at the most. That's why we prefer sometimes to use a heavy bottom. Sometimes we prefer a heavy bottom so you can regulate the heat better. I'm gonna have all the broth evaporate and absorbed by the rice. In effect, if you do have, even if you knew how much liquid, like in a pilaf rice, you know how much liquid it absorbs, in reality, you want to still use this technique because this way there will be a major, a superior concentration of the flavor through evaporation. We're going to add at this point some cauliflower puree in order also to give some flavors. So the reason for which I chose a risotto is because, as I was mentioning, we signed this deal, this agreement with this national organization that preserves rice and promotes rice. So you might have known that this is the international Italian cuisine in the world. It has been the third, actually, in November. And one of the agreements that we made with the Italian government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is to promote rice. And that's why a lot of our ambassadors that went around the world in order to promote Italian cuisine, they brought rice in any kind of form or shape in order to promote our product. A lot of times, risottos are made in a different way or in a way that is not belonging to the Italian cuisine or overcooking it, which we don't do that. And it is our pride to have this kind of product, which is only produced in Italy and not anywhere else. Any other kind of rice cannot be used for the same purpose because they are either too starchy or their starch is different. So we're going to add a little bit more puree. And we're going to add also a pinch of salt. We're going to do a londa, so we're going to do like a very soft risotto, not a tight one. Okay. I'm going to let it rest for a few minutes in order to let all the extra liquid be absorbed. And we're going to add our ingredients as well. I'm going to add our preserved lemon. We do this in the restaurant in order to we do both savory and sweet. That's something that belongs to our tradition, but also to Indian tradition, the savory, sweet, preserved lemons. Then we're going to add a little bit more of that. We're going to add the pomegranate. Then we have to complete, in order to do savory and acidity, first of all, the pomegranate molasses. I'm going to add 1 sauteed cauliflower. And then we have the capers have been powderized. And then finally our deep fried capers and dehydrated. So you have basically a fat-free risotto that looks like a risotto that contains tons of butter or cheese, but it's a modernized way of making risotto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristina Bowerman. Please stay on the stage. And I would like to invite now Boris Miniali once again to the stage, Metro Cash and Carry Turkey Managing Director. Metro Türkiye Genel Müdürü Sayın Boris Miniali plaketini vermek üzere sahneye geliyor. May I please have you there in the center?